Monkeyboy's YouTube channel is the best YouTube channel, intersubjectively, stands independently, conceptually, metaphysically, epistemically, and rhetorically. Subscribe to the channel and Patreon.
And get to knowledge from that.
Well, you would need to give an argument, right? Maybe I could just say, well,
that's why we do the paradigm comparison. That's like kind of the whole point.
Yeah, well, but you haven't shown. I mean, you can go ahead and show it, but like you were trying to say that I can't even object to your worldview.
No. Right now you can. We're doing a paradigm comparison. That's fine.
Well, when was? Maybe I'm confused. When was it that an atheist couldn't object to the worldview?
No, what I'm saying is that what the argument is about is how you justify knowledge. So if your worldview fails to account for knowledge, you're going to have to shift your worldview to something else. How the argument works, and then you just keep shifting until you can't shift any longer.
I mean, I guess you wouldn't have. I mean,
like
I don't think that's true. I kind of just want to do the worldview comparison, but again, this is kind of like the whole tag thing. I can't just let this go. I don't think that's true because you had knowledge, right? You knew that your parents were your parents, or that you had hands before you were a Christian, right?
I wasn't justified in believing so. I believed that, but that's not the same as giving a justification.
You don't think you were justified in believing you had hands before becoming a Christian?
That's not what I said. I said that obviously I believed these things and I was right in believing them, but that's not the same as giving a philosophical justification. Like a 5-year-old can say stuff which are true.
But you think they were justified though, right?
I think they were justified, but could I have given a justification back then? Probably not.
Yeah, you say.
If you sat 5-year-old me in a room with a philosopher who starts questioning all of my different faculties, I'm probably going to struggle, aren't I?
Well, you would say, look, here's my hand. That's justification for me to believe I have hands. I could be wrong, but here's my hand. Like a 5-year-old would do that, right? Is that not justification?
No, that wouldn't be sufficient justification.
Oh, what? Then how do you know anything, man? How do you know that like Christianity is true, or the Bible is true, or that you have hands, or you're not like a post-op trans person? Like, how do you know anything if your standard of justification is that high?
Obviously, we start with our assumptions, right?
Yeah, but how do you even were you justified to know that you exist or something like that before you could believe in Christianity?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, then how did you be? If you weren't justified to believe anything, how could you be justified in believing Christianity?
Like I said, like I spiritually came to it. I didn't come to it through.
Well, I know you believe that, but why would you be justified in believing that's what happened? See the problem?
And like I said, it's a circular epistemic point that you're getting me to, and I've already admitted that. But I would say that it's valid at that level.
But it's not justified, right?
Well, that's the whole point. It would be my starting point.
Well, but you wouldn't be justified in that starting point, is what you're saying. Which I don't think.
That's how starting points work.
No. A starting point like foundationalism, you are justified. You just don't need every further reason to believe it. That's what the foundation.
It would
self-justified.
Say again.
It's supposed to be self-justified, not that it's not justified. It's not justified by something else, but that doesn't mean you're not justified in believing it.
No, I'm saying I'm justified, but my reason for justification would be circular. But I'm saying that the circularity is valid. So if you're asking for a justification in almost like a... that's totally fine. But like you didn't have that when you came to Christianity, though. You didn't have that circular justification before you came to Christianity. So how did you get to Christianity? I just told you because God called me onto him.
Yeah, but how did you get to be justified circularly, right? Or in a coherence?
I think I'm missing what you're saying, maybe, or maybe talking about
just think of it this way. You're outside of Christianity, right?
Yeah.
To be justified in anything, you need a type of justification. You're like offering like a coherence theory of justification, I think. Well, how did you get that coherence theory of justification without being within Christianity in the first place?
So just to slow it down a bit, are you saying before I was a Christian?
Yeah, how did you get that circular type of justification?
And are you asking how I came to Christianity from an unjustified starting point?
Yeah, how were you, if you were unjustified, you were outside the coherence justification network, web of beliefs, right?
Yeah.
How did you get to Christianity and be justified in believing Christianity?
But like I said, I didn't use that unjustified starting point to get to Christianity.
Then how are you justified in being a Christian then?
I'm confused on what you mean, because there's two ways you could mean by that. Are you saying, like, do I think that Christianity can be argued for or justified?
Well, how are you just, if you're not within that... How did I come
to Christianity personally?
No, not like a causal history, like your grandmother told you to believe. I'm not asking that. Yeah. I'm asking, how would you be justified if you're not in the necessary web of beliefs of Christianity to come? Like, how would you be justified in believing the proposition that God is true, such that you can get into the web of beliefs where you can be justified?
And when you say justified, do you mean like give sufficient argumentation to be able to say what?
No, just in plan, just have being justified in the belief, right?
Like I said,
that's knowledge. Yeah.
Like the way I came to Christianity was through spiritual means, which I wouldn't really be able to explain in any sort of rational way.
Yeah, but I know you believe that, but how can you justify that proposition is true, right?
But that's obviously asking for justification for my starting point. Obviously, would be a category error because that's obviously my epistemic starting point.
But you said the starting point was circular. So like, how do you get into that?
So that is my starting point. So asking for justification for some starting point is like you can't do that. It's invalid.
Well, I'm not. That's not really what I'm saying. Like, if it's circular, right?
Or maybe I'm missing what you're saying. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe I just move on for this. But like, my point is that like, it doesn't seem like if you're not you don't start off as a Christian, right? To be justified in any belief, including Jesus died for your sins, right? It seems you need to have some kind of justification. But if you aren't already in that justificatory web, how is it that you'd be justified in, believing that proposition in the first place? Like, this is just like a problem.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because this is something I've thought about myself, which was that if we're going to undermine the idea of being justified when you're not a Christian, then how does one even come to Christianity? Because wouldn't they need to use these faculties, which they're saying are unjustified, to be able to come to Christianity in the first place? So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just the problem with the criterion. Like,
but like I'm saying, I didn't come to Christianity with the criteria, is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but then how would you be justified? You said, I guess you're going to say it's non-inferential justification, but I could just kick it back further. How do you know that you have non-inferential justification? And you're not within the justificatory
Well, it's my
network.
starting point. It's like when someone has a starting point, like the whole point is that they don't give justification. That's where they start. Like for you, it'd be sense data.
But why can't an atheist?
Can I just give you like an example?
Yeah, sure.
So like for someone who's a pure empiricist, I don't know if you are, but let's say someone who is, if I told them that, hey, you're using sense data to prove sense data, how do you justify to know that sense data is true? I would say that's an invalid statement, because I would believe that that's their starting point. I can't call them out for circularity or not giving a justification.
Gotcha. Why can't an atheist just rely on their mind then? Start there.
They can. That's completely valid.
So they're justified in believing their mind.
Yeah, I'd say so. If you're using it as your starting point, you can start with your mind if you want.
Oh, okay. So then the atheist is justified. Okay. So then I guess where you would say they're unjustified is when they have to dig deeper, right, and give like a theory, right?
Yeah. So like, I'm not someone who's going to call out other positions for being circular, because like I said, I accept circularity at the foundational level myself. So if someone wants to start with the mind or start with whatever, they can start with it. And I'm not going to say that's circular, because that would be me being a hypocrite.
Okay, all right, then maybe a lot of precepts deny that. Maybe I just misread what you were saying.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I know. I guess I'm a unique presupper.
Gotcha. All right, so
I think it's valid for someone to say something's their starting point, and I shouldn't ask for a justification for someone's starting point.
Sure.
But where I would question is, how do you get from your starting point to knowledge?
Gotcha. Okay, so I think there probably like there are some difficulties with talking about knowledge and like minds and theism, but I'm happy to grant it's a perfectly sufficient explanation. It's at least epistemically, metaphysically possible. But why do you think, like, under, let's just say, materialism, where minds are physical, why would there be a problem with having knowledge or having
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to go down that.
Yeah, or determinism and all that. Like, I tried to get Jay Dyer to tell me why determinism was problematic, and he just kind of called me gay and kicked me.
Yeah. I do appreciate the conversation, though, because like I said, I was asking you earlier in good faith. I wasn't trying to, like, argue with you.
Oh, no, I figured that, actually. Yeah.
So, what was the question again? It was about...
what do you think the difficulties are with explaining knowledge and, like, physicalism of the mind, or, like, materialism? Or
But what would be your position? Would you say you're, like, a pure empiricist, or...?
No, I mean, I think I'm like a pluralist, but I think that, like, the way we get our concepts, our stock of concepts, is from experience, sense data, and then we can build them up and then use them as tools to obtain knowledge a priori, if that makes sense. So it's like, I don't think that rational.
I'm like a layman, and like I said, I've only been a Christian for 2 years, so I'm not an expert. So could you explain to me what a priori means?
A priori is just knowing something without experience. So I could understand, like, mathematics from, like, going to math class and learning things about the world, counting coconuts, right? But then I can use those tools that I learned from experience to know things without experience. Like, I can learn, the rules of mathematics, and then learn, some random multiplication, 33 times 27, right? Just from reasoning without experience. But I think, like, probably our minds are furnished, the semantic content has to get in there from experience. I think.
So are you like a, I guess, materialist and a nominalist?
Well, I'm definitely a materialist about mind or a physicalist, and I am also a nominalist.
Yeah.
I'm a concept nominalist. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess where I usually start, and I don't know if you want to go down this road, but I guess what would tell you what is true or false within your worldview?
What would tell me what is true or false? Well, my mind would tell me, but it depends. Like again, like I could learn things from a prior pure reason. I could learn things from experiencing, looking under the table.
Yeah.
To see that my cat is there. I don't have a cat.
So you
there's different ways to know things.
Sense, experience, and logic, or I don't know.
Oh, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways. I can learn things from testimony. I can learn things from using my eyes and ears. I can learn things
testimony would be like
a doctor tells me I should stop eating so much cereal.
Yeah, but I think you get what I mean. Like, obviously, with the example of testimony, you would hear someone with your sense experience and understand them using logic.
Well, yeah, but so that's like kind of a common mistake. It's not like the way that the concepts get into your head doesn't invalidate like the mode of justification. So like just because I need to hear testimony doesn't make testimony a form of like empiricism in the way that going and studying like bird migratory patterns or something like that.
But it would be foundational to it, like.
It'd be the way that you get the information, sure, but the testimony itself is supposed to be a different form of justification. That's a mistake that like empiricists will actually say that like, well, you can't do math in your head without first learning about math from your math teacher. Like that's just not what the rationalist is talking about, right? That's like a low-level empiricist argument against rationalism.
Yeah. So what would be your foundational, I guess, tools to know what is true or false?
Foundation will be my mind, my ability to reason, my ability to see the world is, my ability to understand testimony and trust others. I guess that's...
Yeah. So I take it you would affirm the existence of logic. Would you say it's inside the mind or outside the mind?
Well, I think... so it depends what you mean. So here's a linguistic thing. There's this thing called the intention-extension relation. So the intention is kind of like the concept in your head or the mode of presentation. And the extension is the thing that a concept refers to on the world. So I think logic has an intention, which are like the rules that we write in our books. And then the extension is behaviors of particulars out in the world. So the way that those particulars behave, such that like an apple is always itself, informs us and helps us understand the law of identity. And we kind of just generalize from the world, the way the world is.
So you're saying that we can interact with logic through our minds, but you would say that it is ontologically, I guess... We extract it from exactly. Material?
Yeah, it's a form. I think the outside world, I'm an indirect realist, there's a formal structure of the world. The world works in a formal way. Our minds are embedded in that way, so it's natural that our minds are going to think rationally and logically. Yeah. And the way that we describe the world is just from these logical terms and rules.
Okay.
At the most general level. And then like scientifically, like we start to admit of like entities like electrons and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can probably tell I'm probably slower than most people you speak to because I'm like new to this. Like this is like what, my third TikTok live.
No, you're actually listening. Like usually presubs are crashing out at this point, which is refreshing.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that because I might ask some clarifying questions where I might have gotten a little bit lost.
Okay.
But like I said, I'm not an expert, so there's going to be probably some things you might say which I don't know. So did you say that you abstract it from the outside world and you use your mind to abstract it, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a fact of the matter about the functional structure of the world, and then we can glean it from our minds that reliably can track the world. Okay.
And I guess the next question would be, what determines that the world all behaves in this, I guess, regular pattern that we call logic?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of agnostic about this, but like one view that I think about is there's like this prime substance. It shoots up these particulars in some kind of like non-causal or causal grounding relation. Some people like admit of like this universal quantum field or like a different dimension, right, that sets the universes into motion. I'm kind of agnostic about the way it is, but like Shaver has a view where it's called priority monism, where there is this fundamental one substance, right, and all the parts of it are proper parts of the whole, but they are also dependent on the whole.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like similar to a god, except there's no ex nihilo creation.
I'm going to be honest. I struggled to follow that a little bit.
Yeah, here's an easier view. Okay, so there's like dozens of cosmological models. One of them is like there's a dimension, right? That dimension is eternal, right? It has the disposition to set universes into motion through like a black hole or something like that. We're in one of such of these universes. Maybe every time there's a universe, there's new laws to each universe. Maybe they're constrained. Maybe there's a ton of latitude how the laws could be. We just happen to be in one such universe where minds can evolve, and so on and so forth.
So your position is that we have, I guess, so you're starting with a universe, and you're saying that, I guess, logic is like, would you say it's an emergent property of the universe, or?
Well, you don't want.
Would you say it's there at the start as well?
Well, it depends if you mean weak or strong emergence. So strong emergence is like when you get like a new category out of something, which I deny. That's like property dualism. Weak emergence is like, which I think I can agree to, is kind of like the example in Wikipedia is like, there's behaviors with a school of fish that can't be reduced to each individual fish. So that's like merely like an epistemic thing. So I think I could say that, yeah, it's like an emergent property weakly. Yeah, because it's like abstraction. It's kind of what it is. Might be.
Okay. So you wouldn't say that it coexists with the universe. You would say that it has a weak emergence from the universe.
Well, I mean, it's weird to say it that way. I think that everything in the universe and what caused this universe can be properly described by the laws of logic. I don't think that like the law of non-contradiction is violated by some planet somewhere or some black hole. If that answers the question.
Okay, so you would say that at the very beginning, at your I guess ultimate starting point, you've got this universe, and you've also got and logic is just a property of this universe.
Yeah, you can say that, like it's the nature of the universe. I mean, that's like a more vague way of saying it. Sure.
Okay. And obviously, you've got universals and particulars, or do you just reject universals altogether as a nominalist?
Well, nominalists deny universals as the realist conceives them, but they admit of universals, like linguistically, like dogs as universal, and the way that they explain how that predicate or that singular term, that term dog or the category works is depending on what type of nominalist you are. So, like, obviously, I believe in universals. They're just not like these mystical Platonic forms, and they're not these Aristotelian inherent essences. I explain it through concepts. I can talk more about that if you want.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I'm familiar with this. So you wouldn't be a strict materialist then? So you affirm, like, concepts?
No, I think concepts are material. They're physical.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead. Explain that for me then.
Yeah, so I think I'm an identity theorist in the mind. I think that the mind, each token mental state is a token physical state. Each concept is a representation, which is just a function of the brain, a bundle of neurons doing something it does. What gives each concept semantic content is the causal power that it brings to the system. So when you have a thought that you attend to, right, in the presence of some target of knowledge, like an apple on the table or a cat on the mat, and that state in your brain directs you to act in an appropriate way, like maybe to grab the apple or to pet the cat, I guess. That's when the representation is true, so to speak, or representing the world faithfully. In the nutshell, that's how it works.
Okay. I'm gonna ask a clarifying question if you don't mind. Yeah. So you use the example of a cat, so I'll just use that as an example as well. You've got two particular cats. Where do you get catness from?
Two particular cats. Well, catness. I mean, we have different concepts of cats, but there's like a prototype theory. It's like inspired by like Wittgenstein's like cluster concepts. My concept of a cat like includes just these particulars that I've experienced, like cartoons. But also there's like a evolutionary and like a biological kind of component to it, and all that's kind of mixed into the concept. But I think my concept like began. I learned about it when I was very small, and I just kind of experienced these animals. Right. I heard that my mom told they were cats, and I kind of just were able to see that they were similar to each other in virtue of the fact that this concept kept reoccurring when I was in the presence of the actual cat on the wall. Okay,
so I think I'm seeing your view more clearly. So when you see particular things, when you see something that I guess is similar, or you can find, I guess, same properties between them, and you can identify those things with your mind, you would category in your mind.
Yeah, I don't universal cat. Yeah, be a category in my mind, because out in the world, I had to kind of supplant this with like the structural realism. There are real structure out in the world, and the reason why I can say that this cat is similar to that cat, because there really is, similarity out in the world. But that similarity doesn't emit of these weird universal things. So I think this puts me like.
What is similarity then? In your, would you abstract that idea from?
Similarity would be, well, I believe, also I kind of talked about like the bottom up, the Sheffer view, where there's just like prime substance, and then being that all of the particulars from this prime substance come from the same unified entity, like maybe a single dimension, right? What comes with each particular, there's a couple ways you could explain this, but this is the way that I've been thinking about, comes with like this existential inertia. So you can think of these particulars being set into motion from this prime substance such that it's constrained to do only like a limited set of things. So you could think of it like the way that a cannon or a cannonball is shot from a cannon. You know, the cannonball can't do loop-de-loops. It's constrained to go so far, so far or whatever, and plop on the ground, given the causal powers of the cannon itself. And because it all comes from the same source, there's going to be similarity.
Okay. I'm going to be honest, that did go over my head a little bit.
But just think of it this way, like it's all come from the same source. This source has a disposition to create things, right? And given that it does that, it's coming from the same source, there's going to be similarity in the effects.
Wait, so what's the source then?
Well, it's just going to be some kind of prime substance.
So is this going back to your starting point, which would be the universe?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it could be this. It could be. So I kind of gave a few examples. It could be like a universal quantum field, a quantum foam. There's like a kind of a primary dimension.
Can I try and steal manual position just to see if I understand it? Mm-hmm. So are you saying that at the beginning, at your starting point, you've got this universe which has all of these, I guess, perfect representations of all these universals within it materially, and then it sort of continues on. And I guess these different things, multiply. Like you would get lots of different cats, and that would all come from the first cat. Or am I just getting lost?
Maybe I missed. I think I missed the first sentence, so I got lost too. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Think of it this way. So there's a prime substance. Sure. It shoots out particulars, right? The particulars have similarity in virtue of coming from the same substance, so that forms a structure in the world. Our concepts are kind of a little bit divorced from that. We kind of pick and choose and carve out that structure that's real, but we pick and choose how we want to carve it out. And that's why we can say when we carve out like these organisms, cats, right, they can be similar to another because there actually is a similarity in the world. But maybe it's somewhat arbitrary that we choose to, call cats instead of, and not lump them in with dogs or, lions or something like that.
Okay. I don't know if you could you tell me what to, because I'm going to look this up and study this later, just so I can understand it better, just because I'm a little bit of a slow boy, so I need to almost take things in slowly. But yeah, could you tell me what to look into to better understand that?
Maybe the SCP entry on monism. There's really not that much to read about concept nominalism, honestly. Because I think the way it's presented, they never give this extra, the realism part, where the concepts can glom onto. So they'd say it's like predicate nominalism, which is debunked or something, or nobody holds to it. But I think the precepts are actually right. You need to give some sort of way the world is such that your predicates can represent the world, and usually the nominalist doesn't do that. But I think that concept nominalism in conjunction with some kind of metaphysical realism does a good job in different categories.
I just think what I'm struggling to understand is how you can get, let's say you have two identical looking circles, and it's computer made, they're identical looking, and these are two particular circles that are identical. The only way I could really abstract the idea of a circle from that, and to know that they're both identical and they're circles, I'm already invoking universals by saying they're identical. I'm saying that they look the same, which isn't something which I can get from particular instances. So,
I do
sort of understand.
Well, I do have a universal. It's a category, but it's just not a universal in the way the realist conceives of them. So the realist is going to say there's a Platonic form in the world, and each of these perfect circles are mere reflections of the form of the circle. Or they'll say there's in each drawing of a circle, there's this essence or something. I don't know what the fuck that is, honestly. There's this Aristotelian essence in there that we're kind of have this communication with our minds somehow. I just don't know. I don't even understand how to make sense of this, how this will work mechanistically. But the way I'm doing it, I'm kind of grounding it in the way that our minds carve out the world. And there is a real similarity out there between those two circles, and we're able to kind of appreciate that. And we can't appreciate all the similarity. We don't see electromagnetic fields and all that bullshit. But,
so how do you get the concept of similarity? Where would you abstract that from in the real world?
So because there is similarity out, where would I get it from in the world? Well, I kind of explained that there's a structure in the world. because there's a prime substance, and all of the individual things kind of proceed from the prime substance, in a manner of speaking. Given it proceeds from the prime substance, there's a unity, and that's what explains the similarity. We can grasp some of that similarity out in the world with our concepts. And the way that we do that is that when we see a circle, right, that initiates a sort of brain state, right? And then when we see another circle, it initiates a very similar, or the same neural bundles. Wouldn't be quote unquote the same mental state, but similar enough such that our minds can kind of mold it together. And
Okay.
we can appreciate.
So I think I understand what you're saying, Mark. You're saying that your initial starting point, which would be the universe, acts as almost like unity.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, like, how would the universe ground universal concepts? Like, where would you get those from that starting point?
Universal. Well, concepts are just part of our minds, right? Concepts don't exist outside of minds.
I can be more specific. Let's just say the concept of similarity, or identifying things to be the same.
Oh, the concept of similarity. How would that work?
Like, where in the universe, because obviously you said that you get this concept because you've got an ultimate unifier, which would be the universe itself. And I'm saying that, what about the universe gives you that? Are you saying that concept is grounded in the universe from the beginning? Or
the similarity is just, maybe it's just something very primitive in our minds that is just when our mind attends to the same concept in different, time and space. So like when I go to your house as a cat, and that cat concept kind of becomes attended to in my mind, and then I go to a different friend's house and they have a cat there, and then that concept pops into my mind. That's just what I mean by similarity. I don't know if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You're identifying things to look the same, right? And I'm not saying you can't do that. Obviously, we can all do that. But I'm saying, where do you get that idea of sameness from? And I guess you're saying that you kind of get that concept from your mind, and your mind applies it to different particulars in order to identify them as the same?
Yeah, your mind does that for you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I guess my next question would be, how come, I guess, you use something which you didn't get from, I guess, the real world or reality, and I guess use it on reality? As like, how would you know that would be reliable, I guess?
Oh, how would I know that my mind is...
I articulated that pretty bad. Let me think about a way of better articulating that. Like, if the concept only exists within your mind, right, and doesn't exist in the real world, then I guess, how come you apply it to the real world?
Oh, my concept.
Explain it, because you don't get it from the real world. So it wouldn't be like a scientific thing. You would be applying something that wouldn't be, I guess, justified in a way, because you haven't abstracted it from reality. You're sort of giving it as a given.
Yeah, it's definitely presupposed that my concepts glom onto the world, if that's what you're asking. Maybe I'm not sure what you're asking.
Like,
I assume my mind works. Yeah.
Like, I guess what I'm saying is that, as someone who is a atheist materialist, you would abstract truth from, like, your sense data and from empirical means. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying that if that concept isn't something that you've abstracted from empirical means, then how come you're using it as something reliable?
Well, it was understood empirically. Our minds kind of like wrap around like their particulars and form the concepts empirically. I'm confused by what you're asking. Like, this is like the basis of how we furnish our mind with concepts in the first place, such that we can use non-empirical means of justification.
Okay. And would you say then that would be like your circular approximate starting point, or like circular epistemic starting point?
Yeah, I think that we all start just trusting our minds.
Yeah, I'm willing to grant an epistemic starting point.
Yeah.
So you're saying you start with your, I guess, epistemic limit, which would be having this mind that has sameness. And then
it's not even the sameness part. It's just that my mind works. I'm just not like,
Yeah, your mind works. I'm saying that the mind has the concept of sameness within it, and it can identify things to be the same.
Yeah, sure, that's a part of it. Yeah, that's one of many things, I assume.
And then you've got a universe that has logic as a property of it.
Well, that's a part of my worldview, though. Like, that's
I'm just explaining. I'm just trying to steelman your view.
Oh, okay.
And then it gives rise to different particulars, and you can identify universals by, I guess, seeing similarity of which you've granted in your epistemic starting point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have the tool to...
I think I've got a good grasp of your position.
Yeah, I have a tool to kind of glom into the structure of the way the world is. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just how I think the world works.
Okay, I guess my last question would be, because like this has been a good conversation, it's been very good for me, would be, how do you get from the universe to your mind?
Oh, evolution. Like, the whole causal history with the Big Bang, accretion disks, I don't know much about it, earthworms, abiogenesis, evolution.
So then it would entail that you're a determinist, because obviously you would...
Well, not necessarily, but I am one, but I don't think it entails that. Maybe the world's indeterminate, right?
The reason I say it entails that is because, like, if we are just strict material and are just a product of the universe working, in motion.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I see what you mean. Not
it would entail that.
You don't mean like determinism, like every history has a unique future. You mean like my mind's determined, like there's no libertarian free will. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So I mean, like, everything I believe would be determined. Everything I say would be determined.
Yeah, sure.
Every choice I think I'm making is all just chemically determined by physics.
Yeah, we're just locked in, fam. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And I guess I would contend with that, which would be, how would you be able to know what is true outside of what you're determined to believe is true?
How would I know what's true outside of what I'm determined to? I could only know what I'm determined to know is true.
And that's kind of, I guess, like a epistemic limit from that, is that you can't really know even your own beliefs to be true.
Why would that follow? Like, just because I'm determined.
I'll give an example. Okay. Like, if we took a hurricane and a tornado, and I asked what's true.
Oh, come on! This is the Jim Bob thing. Come on, man! I can't stand that guy. I've argued with him sometimes. I'm happy to talk about it, though.
Yeah,
I've been trying to talk to him about it, but he won't talk to me.
But that's why I'm talking to you. Right? I'm trying to see how you answer these different arguments to see.
I'm happy to.
So I'm saying that if everything I say is just a product of physical effects, and everything you say is just a product of physical effects, and you say the proposition of I believe determinism is true, and I say that I believe it's not true, how can you be any more true than me if both of us are just determined to say what we're saying and we don't actually know what is true outside what we're determined to believe?
Well, for truth, regardless of if we're justified or if we could ever know the truth, right? There's going to be a fact of the matter. It'll be a fact of whether or not the proposition determinism is true or false. So if, like, maybe I just guess it, like I'm schizophrenic, I say determinism is true. Like, regardless of me being schizophrenic, like, it'll be true that determinism is true. I'm just lucky, right? But the means of which I got to that proposition, although they're determined, right? I don't see why they couldn't be justified. Like, maybe, I got them from a reliable means, right? From, like, God or something like that. Right.
Oh no, yeah, but obviously I'm talking about your worldview, so God wouldn't be implied.
Well, all right. Like, maybe reliabilism is true. My mind actually does capture the way the world is, right? And I infer that the world is determined, and I happen to be and that happens to be true.
But the problem would be that even to say that, you'd only be determined to even believe that very statement.
Yeah, I don't see the problem.
Well, the problem would be that you wouldn't have any access to truth outside of what you're determined to believe, so you can't actually know that. You can't actually know anything to be true, is what I'm saying.
Well, I would only know what I'm determined to know, but why would that be a problem for me to know things? I just couldn't know anything I wasn't determined to know. What? Like, who cares?
I guess it's because when I'm speaking of, like, I guess, truth and about knowing what is true, I guess it would imply some sort of access to be able to get to that point. And I feel like if you don't have that access and you're only determined, then I don't really see how you could get to that point.
But why not? Think of it this way. Like, imagine there's a world, right? Everybody's determined. I do a math problem properly, and I use all the right inferences, and I learned them from math teachers, and I did the math problem, I got the right answer. Now imagine the exact same thing happened in a world where libertarian free will is true, and my mind isn't determined, and I did the exact same steps. Don't you think both people would have knowledge about the correct math answer?
Yeah, I haven't heard that before. I'll have a think about that.
Yeah, because what I think it just means to be justified is that you do perform some kind of procedure that's logical and coherent or justified in whatever way you want to flesh out justification. I just don't see how it matters if you were determined or you were libertarianly free. I just don't get how it would make a difference. It's a descriptive fact of the matter. What I did was, rational or not.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely have a... Can I still man that just to make sure I understand it? Just because I actually want to think about that. So you're saying that, let's say we've got a world where determinism is true, and we've got a world where it isn't, and you've got one person in that world who learns 2 + 2 is 4, and you've got one in the other world that also learns 2 + 2 is 4.
In the exact same way.
How does it make it not true?
Yeah, how's the determined one not justified, even though they both learned it in the exact same way, and the non-determined guy is justified? How could that be possible?
I guess if I was trying to respond to it just off the spot, first time hearing it, I would say that the difference wouldn't be that, like, because determinism could be true and you get to stuff which is true by accident, but I guess what it would entail is that you can't know what you believe to be true for certain.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's I think what you're kind of like gesturing at is called the KK principle, which is to say that you don't know something unless you know you know. Is that like kind of seem like what you're saying?
No, it's more saying that, like, for instance, we'll just take the example we just gave. The person in the determinist world that learns 2 + 2 = 4, like, they could be right, but if they affirm that determinism is true, they would also have to acknowledge the fact that they would only be determined to think it's right. They can't really know what is true outside of that. Therefore, they wouldn't, even if it was true, even if it were the case, they wouldn't know if they have gotten there reliably, because everything they think is reliable and everything they think is true, they'd only be determined to think it.
Right, but that's...
So it's not to say that determinism would be impossible. Yeah. It's just to say that if determinism was true, you would have no way of being able to verify that.
But that's true of every worldview. Like, say, go back into the possible world where determinism is false. You could always just say, like, well, how do you know that your mind is reliable? That's just a skeptical scenario. I don't see how being determined or not determined changes the skepticism.
It would change it, because obviously if you affirm a immaterial essence and you affirm the, I guess, transcendental category of, like, free will and agency, and you affirm, I guess, the Christian worldview in that God has given you access to truth, you would say that you can know things to be true for certain, and it's not just what you're determined to believe. You've actually got access to these things, and you've got the free will to, I guess, work through them and come to conclusions. So that would be...
I mean, to know things for certain, like, I mean, I don't think you want to say that, man. Like, you don't want to say that you can know that you have hands for certain, like you couldn't be wrong, right?
No, I'm just saying it from my starting point, because obviously we were going through your starting point.
I don't think we can know most things with epistemic certainty, but that doesn't mean that you can't know things or be justified. And, like, the same question arises for me. It's just like, why would it matter if, like, the process I got there was determined or not? It just seems like it doesn't. Like, look, there's, like, Christians, like Calvinists, who believe in determinism. Muslims too. That doesn't.
Yeah, but I would disagree with the Calvinists.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, they agree with me. I mean,
yeah, but
philosophers do too. Like, most philosophers are compatibilists. They're determinists, right? And they agree. I just don't see any reason to think that it matters if you're determined or not. Because maybe, like, in my worldview, what it means to be justified is that you just perform a process, and it doesn't matter.
I guess what I was pointing out is almost like it would be an epistemic issue with the position of your worldview, which would be that you can't actually know, like, if determinism was true.
That's true of all worldviews. Like, you can't know that you know, or you can't have certainty.
Well, from my start, yeah, but obviously we're comparing it from our starting point, and from my starting point, it wouldn't entail determinism is true. So it would be a fundamental difference there.
Yeah, but okay, let's just say that determinism is false. There's libertarian free will. How would that allow you to know that libertarian free will is true or something? Or determinism is false with certainty? You could always just ask a skeptical
obviously
question.
We're comparing paradigms, so we're going from what's entailed from our starting point. Like, your starting point that you've put forward, you can't know it to be true, but obviously it's something you believe in, right?
Yeah, but why can't I know it to be true?
Well, I suppose you could. It's logically possible you could. Maybe you can, and then I'll ask how you know that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, so no doesn't entail, like, epistemic certainty. Like, I think what you're trying to say is, like, trying to stimulate, you're saying, like, look, if you're determined, you're locked into a view, you can never, like, kind of get out of that and kind of analyze it and, like, kind of evaluate it, maybe. You're saying something like that?
No, it's not really what I'm saying. I'm saying that every sort of, like, I guess, truth claim or belief or anything you think is true or reliable, it would all just, you would only be determined to believe that to be the case. Whereas if you compared that to the Christian starting point, where you start with free will and agency, and that's what you get granted from your starting point.
Yeah, you wouldn't be determined, but why would it matter? Like, you're either justified
because I wouldn't be stuck in that epistemic box.
Yeah, but why aren't you in an epistemic box, given that, like, let's say that you come to the math question, 2 + 2 = 4, you got that right, it is true. Why can't I just ask you, well, how do you know that? How do you know the world is determined? How do you know that your mind is working properly? How do you know that?
Well, that would all be pretty loaded, but I was just comparing that specific point.
Well, I mean, like, you could ask skeptical questions. My point is, you could ask skeptical questions on either worldview. I don't see how being determined.
Yeah, of course you can, but obviously I was just showing a difference there in that specific point.
No, but I don't see the difference. So that's the point. Like, I'm trying to make.
Like, obviously, it would be a big difference if I've got free will and agency, and that's a real thing. Then that means I've got access to, all, like, to the real world and to logic.
Yeah, but why couldn't I have that with determinism? Why can't I have access to the real world under determinism?
Because
right? Like,
you would only have access to what you're determined to have access to, and I think beyond that,
but that could be the real world, right?
It could be, but you wouldn't be able to know that to be the case. Like, it's logically possible.
But it's logically possible if you're not determined that you're a brain in a vat, right? See what I'm saying?
Well, no, because obviously we're comparing paradigms. Like, my paradigm wouldn't entail that I'm a brain in a vat.
Well, neither would mine.
Yeah, and I know that. Like, what I'm doing would be an internal critique of the paradigm.
Yeah, my worldview says that I'm not a brain in a vat. So like,
yeah, I'm not trying to say you are a brain in a vat.
No, I know you're not. But like, my worldview.
Your position.
But I'm just using the same tools you're using to get out of the skeptical scenarios, right? I'm giving the
saying what if is an internal critique. Like, I could say to you, well, what if you were just wrong about everything you're saying right now? Like, that wouldn't really be.
But that is what you're saying, right? What if I'm
wrong?
No,
that's not what I'm saying at all. I've just taken the criteria of your worldview and just said what it would entail.
Yeah, but I don't know why it would entail that I can't know things.
And then when I went to my worldview, I feel like you kind of like shifted and didn't do the same thing. Like,
I'm not trying to say there's something wrong with your worldview. I'm just saying, like, I don't see the difference. That's all.
Yeah, I'll sort of explain it. Like, with yours, I never strawmanned anything. I only took the criteria which you set and just showed a problem which I thought I saw. And I feel like it's kind of like a little bit.
And but in my worldview, I do believe that I can see reality. I can glean reality.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you believe in determinism, you have no justification to say that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking you to show, man. Like, maybe we're kind of going in circles, but like, yeah, I don't think you've shown that like being determined makes you unjustified in any way.
Because, like I said, you've put yourself in a box where you've only got access to what you're determined to have access to, and everything you believe and think you believe would just be determined. Whereas if you, I guess, and it would only be determinism which would have that problem. Right? You could take the Islamic position, which believes in will, and they wouldn't run into that problem.
I agree with everything you're saying, except for that there's a problem with it. I just don't see where the problem is.
I'm not saying Christianity is the only one that solves that specific problem.
No, I'm not saying you're saying that.
Problem which your position entails.
Yeah, I'm just not. I agree with all you're saying. Like, everything you know is determined. You're in a box. Like, you couldn't know anything otherwise because you're determined. But why does that mean you can't have knowledge or be justified? I don't get it.
It's because you wouldn't know what you believe to be true to necessarily be true because you don't have any access beyond that to be able to be skeptical.
But that's the KK principle, which like nobody agrees with, and that's true of your worldview. Like,
that would be an appeal to authority, like just saying, well, nobody agrees.
Well, there's a good reason. But I'll tell you the good reason. The good reason is that if that's true, the KK principle is true, then you don't know you have hands because it's the case that you could be deceived.
That's not what I was doing. I was literally taking your own criteria you set and just showing what it would entail. That wasn't me saying, well, what if you're wrong? Like, that's not the same thing.
Yeah, but
I was doing an internal critique.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing an entailment there. That's the thing. I mean, we've kind of, maybe you could like write it out and like send it to me, but
yeah, sure. It's been a great conversation anyway. Like, I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been really good. And you're obviously someone who's really, well educated. So it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'll add you. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
See you, bro.
See you later.